Coach, how much of a difference, if at all, do you expect as far as the performance in a new league?
Well, we hope the performance is consistent from league to league. The differences will be the opponents, the environments. There's so much unknown about MLS Next Pro in those areas, but we know that the quality of opponent will be good. Maybe they won't be as how do I say it, streetwise. In the USL, we played 30-year-old guys with kids, and they're playing for their next paycheck. But basically, that's their life. Here, we're playing against guys who are trying to make it up. There's a difference. There's a difference between those two players. One is going to kick you when the ref's not looking, and the other is not. Those sort of lessons that you learn playing in that sort of environment in the USL are valuable, and we benefited, I think, from them. But the quality of player, the individual quality of player, on average, I expect to be pretty darn high in this league. So we have to perform at a level that's good every game to be able to get something from them.
Is it the 30-year-old that's going to kick you, or which one?
Typically that, yeah. The Stray Cats said there ain't nothing in school they don't teach you on the streets, but I went to school for a long time, so I disagree with that. I think
With you guys and your approach, though, was there any way, or did you approach the season any different with your team specifically?
well, the roster is smaller this year. The official Defiance roster is smaller than it was last year. Last year was a pandemic roster where we didn't know if we'd ever get first team guys again, so we had to stock up with guys, and as a result, I didn't get to play as many academy players as I would have liked, and really, frankly, I mean, I say that I played Obed, and he was age eligible to play in the academy, still is. So we had young guys playing, but they were signed young players, and rather than what we used to have, which is 8 to 10 academy guys who are still in the academy, not professionals, they would get games pretty regularly. This year we've signed fewer players, so it opens that door for a couple more young guys to test the waters. And it also allows for first team guys to regularly come in, because there is a backlog of young talent on a really, really good first team with really experienced players. So, Coach Schmetzer has a difficult decision every week, who he's going to play, who he's going to leave out. And we expect this year to just have a lot of opportunities for those guys to get games with us.
The whole point of Defiance is to be developing players for the first team, but now with the RAVE implementation with the ticket sales is kind of developing soccer in the region. Do you think that's kind of a good synergy between the two, that the whole purpose of Defiance is developing soccer in the area?
Yeah, I've not heard it said exactly like that, Joe. I'm going to borrow that if you don't mind. I think it's excellent. I think that the initiative, so many things about this club make me proud to work for it. Where they stand on all sorts of issues in the world today, and this is one of them. Where soccer for all, we're developing the sport in the community. We want to be a community asset. I know we only have 2 games in Tacoma. I loved the experience in Tacoma. I'm a South King County guy, a 253 cell phone. I feel a special bond with that experience. But it really, if it's Tacoma, or no, Tacwilla. There's some way you could phrase it, I'm sure. But the RAVE Foundation does excellent work. I was at one of the mini pitches they unveiled last year, the one in Tacoma, and it was. I'm so proud of Ashley and her group and the stuff that they do. That if we're helping in that regard, it just makes it even more meaningful. I mean, yeah, we want the next first team player to come through our pipeline, but that player could be 6 years old and playing on a mini pitch somewhere that we help put in. So.
Talk about the pipeline. Jackson is obviously one of those, and you're credited, a lot for his development. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what did you maybe work with him about, and how have you seen him progress in return?
I will start by saying Jackson came to me as a teenager when he joined the academy as a pretty darn good player. So he was a midfielder. So I looked at his frame, and we we decided to make him a center back. So that he played. I was the person that put him there first, but he, I mean, the composure he displays in the face of pressure, he had that. I didn't have to teach him that. Certainly didn't teach him his size or his heading ability or a lot of the other things that people see about him or see in him and like about him. But there were things that we worked with him on. You know, I have this document I call the rules for defending, and there's 47 rules, and I keep adding to it when I discover a new one. I haven't copyrighted it, so I'm not prepared to share it yet. But in that document are things as simple as when a center back leaves the middle of the field to address a problem on the outside of the field, the problem must be addressed. Right, as simple as that. You don't leave the middle. That's where the goals are, in the middle of the field, right? Seems simple, but a lot of center backs go flying out to a wing and let the guy run by him. And so Jackson has learned those sort of, I would say, simple truths. And everything else, I'm telling you, is him. He's humble. He works really hard. He's quiet. If there's something I think he needs to get better at, is he needs to find his stadium voice. You know, like when you play on an academy field, or even for Defiance in front of smaller crowds, people hear you. Your teammates hear you. If you tell him man on, he knows there's a man on. I talked to Jackson yesterday, and he said he was trying to talk to Javi in Austin, but it was so loud. He's 10 yards away shouting as loud as he can, and he can't be heard. So there is it's almost like a dog whistle. There's a voice that you can project that cuts through, and he's got to find that. You know, it's hard to practice it as well. At some point, he'll find it.
Was it as far as him playing college ball? You know, how do you view that, and as far as adding that to the way that you get to a first team?
Yeah, Dylan Tevez, same thing. You know, we think training time is important. We think that the hours you spend training to prepare for games is the most important part of a young player's development. We really only see games on our side as checkpoints. Like, how are we doing? How are we doing? But all of the training in between, and in college soccer, you don't get as much time to train. What Jackson did get was access to a Big 12 gym and staff at Michigan that, you know, helped him. He was a skinny kid when he left, and he's a strong man now. So I think if he hadn't been as good a soccer player when he left, he was good. If he'd just been like a prospect and then got bulky, it wouldn't be good enough. But the college route is, I won't dismiss it only because I know in the case of Jackson and Dylan, it can still work. I just think that's not our preferred method, because those are critical years, 18 to 22, where there's countless hours that you could spend training 6 days a week, double sessions. We have a gym as well, so you know we can provide a soccer experience that's unique. I do think, however, continuing one's education is critical. So I'm not suggesting that people drop out of school and concentrate full time on soccer. I think that Jackson is probably the exception to step in and be as good as he is. But I will also add that he did spend a year with Defiance in between, and if we sharpened some of the things that needed sharpening, then we'll take credit for it. But again, he was fairly sharp coming out of the drawer.
When he did, because you're talking about the COVID year, right? When things shut down. So was it the benefit of him living in the area that helped, or did you kind of say, hey, come back here because of the talent that he is and knowing what he can do?
Yeah, I've been in communication with Jackson since he left the academy in 2017. So we've talked at different times about decisions he's had to make. He probably sees me as an ally, someone who's in his corner. And we talked when he was drafted by Chicago, you know, because we had the option of signing him to a homegrown contract, and we opted to allow him to be available. Chicago didn't rate him. You know, I'm fortunate that the coach that made that decision was fired. Not for that decision, I don't think. Although who knows in retrospect. But if Ezra Hendrickson had been in charge when that sort of agreement had been made, to give us his rights, Ezra might have made a different decision, because Ezra, little known fact, actually gave Jackson USL experience as an academy player, just a couple games in 2017, his final year in charge. So Ezra might have said, no, I remember that guy. So we maybe got a little lucky with that. I don't know if that answers your question.
But another question. The relationship, and obviously you've been here a long time, but still the relationship that you and Schmetzer have, how do you guys go about communicating the development and progress of players?
Yeah, Brian and I, we've known each other for a really long time, but in a professional way where, he is the first team coach and I'm the second team coach. This is the second year of it. But I have to say he's direct, and I prefer a coach to tell me, like, I want this guy to play this many minutes in this position. We'll have discussions about lots of things, like about, is this the best spot for him? Like, if he wants me to play, I'll just throw an example out there. Raul, I don't expect Raul to get many minutes with us, but if he said, I want Raul to play as a 9 for 45 minutes, coming back from an injury or whatever, I might be able to say, well, do you think Raul wouldn't benefit from some time on a wing? And he's either going to say yes or no, and it's my job to make that work. And I see that as a challenge sometimes, a good challenge, a healthy one that I look forward to trying to meet. There are other things, and I think this is also significant, that in the past, I think there have been decisions made and people didn't really bother to ask Brian, well, what do you think? And that seems weird, but the academy for a long time was sort of separate. They didn't sign academy players. They went to college. That was the first few years of the academy. So Brian, he wasn't like looped into all the conversations. So if we have a 16-year-old that we think is pretty good, we'll say to Brian, what do you think? And if Brian says, yeah, I like that kid, then we will put our shoulder behind that guy and push him, because that's what we're trying to do. We need the first team to like him, to say, yeah, that's our guy. And if there's a couple we like that they don't rate, it's not like we'll abandon them. We're gonna have to do that in a different way, because we want every kid that plays for Defiance, young man, to have a pro career that probably doesn't finish with us, that finishes somewhere else, hopefully higher up the food chain. And the ones that Brian likes and the ones that he's indifferent about, we approach them slightly differently in terms of our push, so to speak. But we value all of them that we think have a chance to make it to our first team.
So you consider it, like, you gauge your success. Like, now I think there's 5 on the first team that played for Defiance. Might
5
be more.
last year.
Yeah. So you consider you tally your success by that, like how many you can get up there.
Yeah, Jada, I wish it was that simple, because we also want to win. And I look at last season's Defiance team as, we fell, going into our final game of the season, we knew if the result went one way in one city and the result went our way and all that, we were in the playoffs, which was a long shot at the beginning of the year. So to come that close and miss, that still hurts. That our team is not happy about that. We wish we had sealed the deal and qualified for the playoffs, had that experience for the guys. It would have been great. It would have been a great experience. And so we can't lose sight of the fact that we're at an organization that values winning, And I don't want to say Dallas doesn't, but you contrast us to Dallas, who've produced so many wonderful players, right? Players that are currently in Europe even. They've never won an MLS Cup. I think they've been in one final. I played for them in '97, so I feel like I can be slightly dismissive. I'm not suggesting that Dallas don't want to win. I'm just saying I'm not sure that's the biggest thing. From the outside, it doesn't appear to be the biggest thing. Whereas for Brian Schmetzer, he wants to win. If he can do it with a team full of homegrowns, I'm sure he's happier. But he doesn't care, because he wants to win, and the club is that way.
And then Sunday with the opener, how do you go about, I guess, fielding the team then? Will you only go with who's been here and been able to train with you, or will you go with some of the first team guys?
Yeah, That's a good question. We'll have first team guys involved in our training sessions leading into that game. Now, you didn't see any out there today, but we'll have some, and we've already talked about where they'll play, what the plan is, and to the extent we can, we will offer an experience as similar to the first team as possible in terms of positioning. So we wouldn't try A.B. Sissoko is not going to go up and play as a striker. That kind of guy is going to fit into his natural spot. He'll get minutes because the following weekend, first team plays Minnesota, which is the first of a big 10-day, 12-day spread for them. So.